local issue, and I think it's really something it's very important. I think both in the east of the county and in the south of the county, and this is the sort of the Green New Deal, the investment that Green councillors and the Green Party are asking for in terms of promoting young people into a green economy, creating green jobs. And you were talking, or you've talked to me in the past about, for example, the way Biden is starting to really act upon his manifesto commitments in the States, and really progressive policies that are involving, lots of young people fresh out of university to take those skills and to try and combat, the CO2 emissions, to try and combat the melting glaciers. Because if we don't do it, and we don't do it really quickly, it may be too late. But if we don't make an effort, then we're going to fall over the precipice a lot quicker if we just carry on behaving as we have been. So it is really positive to see ideas and solutions being put forward, and for a lot of people to be saying yes. That really inspires me. And if we just we can just pull up yet again from Dorset Eye some of the articles that we've had in recent times, and this one is very recent. 22nd of April, a Green New Deal could create more than 11,600 green jobs in Dorset. What better time in post-COVID to start talking about reinventing the economy? And I know that there was a survey done during, I think, the first lockdown, and it was amazing the majority percentage of people that said they didn't want to go back to the society and the economy that we had before. So we have to be, really pushing this out there to remind people in power that the public simply don't want it. Young people especially don't want to return to it. So it's really cool to see people like Chloe Sutcliffe, animal biology and conservation graduate, and got Mark Chivers, who's a project leader, who's Zero Carbon Dorset, who's both doing amazing jobs alongside many other people in really pushing forward how we can create a much more sustainable economy. And please go to others. Please, our viewers, go to Dorset Eye and read these articles for themselves. However, we also, as we're seeing, unfortunately, some of the policies that are being put forward for the way in which we get rid of some of our waste, and it doesn't necessarily fall in line. But this is the incinerator. Here we have Chapelgate, which is in Parley in north of Bournemouth, but near Herne Airport, and it's also near an important site for Bournemouth University. Their argument is that obviously it poses real pollution issues, but not only that, but obviously heavy traffic threat to green belt areas, which are supposed to be protected. But the real positive, Tom, before I come back to you, is that Weymouth Council voted down and against the incinerator in the south of Dorset in Portland. And what, of course, they're asking people to do now in Bournemouth is to do the same thing, is to sign the petitions, put pressure on local MPs, and to make Bournemouth Council, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council, excuse me, to completely rethink their policy, their strategy for waste. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer to say this, if you like, but it is a must now. There's the time for discussing whether climate change and the climate crisis is real has gone. There may be a few extreme right-wing politicians and fossil fuel companies that are still trying to argue that, but they're a joke. The time for prevarication and not taking huge, positive, urgent action to save the planet and the future of all life on Earth is now. The time has come now. And we can't wait 5 years. We can't wait 10 years. We've got to be acting now. And we've got to be acting in a way that's significant and large. We've got to do that to move away. In particular, you know, there's lots and lots of ranges of measures that can be undertaken in different spheres of our society and economy and industry, but you know, transport, etc. But obviously, we've got to massively move away very quickly from reliance on fossil fuels and towards a green economy, green initiatives, green jobs. And there are all sorts of innovations, and great to see, you know, this study that was just highlighted in your article there, the study that suggests, you know, 12,000 or so jobs can be created in innovative green technology across Dorset. You know, those studies are fabulous and need to be really embraced by politicians and people in the industrial sector to create those jobs and move forward. It's you know, 50 years from now, we might look back and say, why weren't we doing that earlier? Why on earth weren't we doing that earlier? Because it solves two problems at the moment, partly because of the pandemic. We have two huge problems. We have an unemployment crisis, particularly in the young, and particularly in this country, particularly affecting Black and minority ethnic population who are disproportionately affected by the unemployment crisis. So, crisis of unemployment, and at the same time a climate crisis. And those two things can be solved by intelligent investment in green technologies and innovations, and a shift away from fossil fuel reliance. And we've got to do it now. So great to see, you know, studies like this being put forward, politicians voting and pushing for a greener economy. And again, I think it's something certainly led by our young people. And things like, you know, the decision not to, you know, to go ahead with the incinerator on Portland. It's got to be said, you know, that's people taking action. That's people power. That's all the people. Well done to all of you that did.
Yeah.
That filled in the survey and said no, you know, this is crazy. It's, you know, it's completely against our views on tackling climate change. You know, the pollution issues, the heavy traffic issues. It's not the answer to our problems. We have to create less waste, not decide to send it off to another country that are burdened with it, or decide to burn it in a way that will create pollution that our children will breathe. We've got to create less of it in the first place, and find creative solutions to deal with the waste we do create. So great to see young people and the public getting motivated to take action and to influence our politicians to make good decisions. And let's push on with a green economy. Let Dorset lead the way in that.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a fantastic phrase you did use there in terms of, you know, the people power. You know, we've seen people power now. You know, last week we saw it with the Super League in football, and all the time we are seeing people power in local communities that are influencing and changing the minds of authority figures and people in power. And yet I just don't feel that enough of it is being publicized. You know, if we could publicize all of those policies that have been overturned because people have stood together and said no, and here's why we're saying no. And if we were given that information, I think so many more people as well would join. They feel more confident. But for some reason, the corporate billionaire media like to, you know, be very selective in how they either report it or selective in how much they report. So maybe we can change that, Tom. You and I and many others, we can bring that to their attention a lot more through this program and many programs like this.
Well, let's hope so, Jason. And wasn't it extraordinary to see, you know, a huge number of people, football supporters in the main, be absolutely up in arms, and rightly so, that a few unbelievably wealthy, mostly Americans, were looking to, in a greedy way, extract the most profit they possibly can from our game in a way which would destroy football as we know it in this country and be exceptionally bad for the fans. And they were up in arms about that and forced to change, which is great. And yet those same people perhaps are not able to translate that into how exactly that has been happening with fields like health and education, the care sector, how very wealthy people are now extracting as much wealth and profit from our daily lives, from our society, from public services, through a system of capitalism, in a way that isn't good for the consumer, isn't good for us as people.
And when you say things like that, Tom, when I hear other people say things like that, things like that on social media or in the public space, and then you get people go, "Oh, what a bunch of lefties." It's not about left or right for me. It's about, this is fact. And in terms of going back to the green issue, we are merely tenants on this planet. We're only here for decades, then we move away. So what we leave behind is in part down to us. Now, if we don't do anything, if we see all this outrageous behavior going on around us in terms of corruption and profiteering, etc., which then leads to massive dramatic effect on biodiversity, we are complicit, because future generations excuse me, future generations can't dig us up and make us pay or make us answerable for what we've done. But that doesn't change the fact that we are answerable for what we've done and what we did. So I think we have a duty to make sure that the communities, the society, the counties, the countries, etc., that we are proud of what we leave behind when our tenancy is up, so to speak. And I'm sure, and I know that a lot of people in the community who want us to be talking, especially on Dorset, they want to be, providing us with content a lot more about climate change and biodiversity, because they say it has to be right at the forefront of people's consciousness. And the more it's at the forefront of people's consciousness, the more that they'll become aware of, and the more that they'll do.
I mean, you're right, Jason. We have a duty, all of us. We have a duty, a responsibility to retain a habitable planet for our grandchildren, for the human race, and for all life on Earth. For there's record numbers, millions of species of animals becoming extinct now because of the climate crisis and change, and our exploitation of the natural environment, things like deforestation. I mean, we're killing off thousands of species on a weekly basis. We have a responsibility to be different, and if not, our grandchildren will never forgive us. So yes, I think Arundhati Roy said that beautiful thing. I can't remember it exactly, but it's something like, "Another world is possible. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." It's just a beautiful thing, a beautiful idea. Another world, another planet that protects and preserves all life on Earth and meets our needs in a responsible way is absolutely possible within our grasp if we eliminate greed. We eliminate the need for a small number of people to make vast profits. There's more than enough resources in the world for the population of the world. Even though the population's large, there's more than enough resources, more than enough space, more than enough food and the ability to grow it, water, etc. But we have to move away from a system of greed that's killing the planet.